Democrat Congressman Cori Bush has proposed a new law to pay off Democrat apparatchiks, and she is launching the law on the memory of Michael Brown, who was killed by a police officer 10 years ago.
Michael Brown should have turned 28 years old. The last birthday he celebrated and will ever get to celebrate was his 18th. Just 81 days after his 18th birthday, a Ferguson police officer killed him. In a just world, Mike Brown would be with his loved ones right now, celebrating another year, dreaming of his future as he blows out the candles on his birthday cake. But instead, we are only left with the memories of who he was.
We do remember who he was. We remember because we have video footage and eyewitness testimony. Michael Brown was a 6'4", 292-pound 18-year-old whose last acts on earth were robbing a convenience store, assaulting a clerk, punching a cop, grabbing the cop's gun, running away, and then turning, for some reason, to charge the cop, at which point the cop shot and killed him. Had Michael Brown done everything up until that final act, had he robbed the store, assaulted the clerk, punched the cop, even grabbed the cop's gun, and then just run away, Michael Brown would still be alive today. Or at the very least, he would have survived that particular run-in with the law. But he didn't. He had to charge the cop, at which point the officer had no real choice but to fire, at which point liberal hacks lied about what happened, pretended that Michael Brown was executed in cold blood, and then looted and rioted before mau-mauing the flat catchers into paying off Democrat patronage groups. Then they demoralize and defund the police, which encourages more crime, which leads to more confrontations with the cops, which leads to more opportunities for patronage. Great news for Cori Bush and the professional left. Bad news for everyone else. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Friends star Courtney Cox says that her former co-star Matthew Perry, who died, still visits her a lot. We will examine how that is possible. First, though, I want to talk about preborn. Go to preborn.com/Knowles. New estimates show that abortion took the lives of more than 1 million babies in 2023, the highest number of abortions since 2012. Unfortunately, the overturning of Roe v. Wade has only made the abortion pill more readily available. We have got to fight back against this evil. But how do we do that? By joining hands with Preborn, the largest pro-life organization in the country. Preborn sponsors ultrasounds for clinics in areas with the highest abortion rates. When a mother considering abortion meets her baby on ultrasound and hears the heartbeat, she's twice as likely to choose life. Every day, Preborn rescues 200 babies' lives, which is truly magnificent. By the time I finish this ad, however, 2 babies will have been taken by this tragedy. One ultrasound costs only $28 and could be the difference between life and death. Please join the fight by sponsoring 1, 2, or even 300 ultrasounds. All gifts are tax deductible. To donate, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That is pound 250 keyword baby. Or go to preborn.com/Knowles, Knowles, preborn.com/Knowles. You want to talk about Democrat patronage? This has been the story of the Democrat Party for many decades, centuries at this point. And this is especially true in Chicago, one of the most corrupt Democrat machines out there. And thanks to a little hat tip from End Wokeness, we now see a clip of the new appointed transportation czar in Chicago. This is the Reverend Ira Acree, appointed by Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, to serve on the transportation board, even though the guy doesn't know anything about transportation.
As members of City Council's Transportation Committee learned yesterday, Acree is far from a transit expert. While he grew up using public transportation, Acree told the committee, as an adult, he occasionally uses it downtown.
As a man, I don't have to use CTA. I'm fortunate to have a car.
While transportation is facing a crisis, Acri says he needs more information to make any judgments about CTA Chief Dorval Carter or an effort in Springfield to consolidate RTA, CTA, and PACE. 32nd Ward Alderman Scott Wagasback was disappointed Acri was unaware of an RTA $730 million shortfall.
This is my first time hearing about a $735 million shortfall. And so I wouldn't want to respond to that today.
Before appearing before the committee, Acri admitted he never spoke with the mayor about the administration's transportation vision.
Of course, why would he? He just has this job as a payoff because he's a popular liberal activist, left-wing activist, and so the Chicago mayor is paying him off. And he doesn't need to know anything about transportation. He's probably never going to show up to work. He doesn't need to know about the $750 million that the transportation department is in the hole. Doesn't need to know about anything. He doesn't even need to take the public transit. He's fortunate enough to have a car because he's getting handouts and bribes from the government. This is how politics has worked for much of American history. We think now that we have a reformed civil service that is based on merit and qualifications, not just political patronage. And we did have that sort of for a little while. That is owing to one of our nation's most underrated presidents, Chester Alan Arthur. I actually did a PragerU video about Chester Alan Arthur. Not often discussed as a great president, but he was a good guy. And he and James Garfield also published the first blank book in American political history. So what Chester Arthur did was he gets in as vice president, and he was a crooked New York politician, and everyone thought he was just going to be doling out patronage to his friends, and he reformed, actually, in office and said, no, we're going to hire people who are qualified for the job, and we're going to, when we hire someone for the transportation department, they actually have to know something about transportation. And so that was the ideal since, I don't know, at this point now, almost a century and a half of American history. But as the country becomes more and more corrupt, as that supposedly, disinterested civil service focused on the common good just becomes a decayed kind of self-interested deep state, you're just going to see more and more of this. And probably you have to, actually, because in politics, your opponents get a say. And so if we don't have a really mature, disinterested civil authority that's focused on the common good and the civil service, then you're just going to dole out jobs. And the Democrats are going to dole out jobs for their friends. And maybe Republicans need to start thinking about doling out jobs for our friends, because personnel is policy, a point we'll be talking about a little bit later. Speaking of transportation and liberal cities, Oakland has just decided to remove some traffic lights ahead of a spike in thefts. So in Oakland, California, there's an intersection that has a ton of homeless people surrounding it. And the city has decided they're going to get rid of the traffic lights and they're going to replace them with stop signs. Initially, I assumed this was because the bums keep going up and harassing the cars if they're at the red light too long. So the cars got to keep moving. If you're driving through a bad part of town, very often you don't even want to stop at the stoplights or the stop signs. But no, it's apparently even sadder than that. According to reports, the bums, the criminals and the homeless, have been stealing copper wires and city infrastructure. They got to get rid of the traffic lights here because these vagrants are stripping the copper off the traffic lights and selling it for crack, or I don't know, we're probably getting pennies on the dollar for this copper. And so what do the Oakland city officials do in the face of that? Why they get rid of the traffic lights, of course. These people, these libs, will do anything to avoid arresting criminals. You know that meme? I say, the men, they'll do anything to avoid going to therapy. Men will climb Mount Kilimanjaro to avoid going to therapy. Well, the liberals will do anything. They will tear down traffic lights to avoid arresting criminals. But there's an obvious answer to this problem. If you just give the police permission to arrest the vagrants and the criminals who are living on the street, who have no right to do so, to quote Rudy Giuliani during the Occupy Wall Street protests, living on the street is a dysfunctional act that harms the individual and society. If you just tell people to cut it out, then you get your traffic lights. and you get your city infrastructure. And you don't need to worry about crime all the time. And you get to drive through downtown at night, but the libs, they won't do it. Now, speaking of dodgy city operatives, big day in the New York Trump trial yesterday. The prosecution has a star witness. The star witness is that rat who worked for Trump, Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was the lawyer, fixer, slimy character. Even in New York real estate and casinos, and you talk about kind of slimy industries, this guy is particularly slimy. And so he was a fixer, and he's turned on Trump, turned state's witness, and he's the star. He's the star in this case because Michael Cohen was the guy who actually executed on the payment, the supposed hush money payment to Stormy Daniels, that Stormy Daniels said she never received because Stormy Daniels said that she never slept with Trump. And then she said this in official statements, and then she contradicted those. So she's got a credibility problem. And Michael Cohen, because he's a slimy little rat, obviously has a credibility problem. But his credibility problem got turned up to 11 yesterday when the defense pointed out that Michael Cohen stole money from Trump. Not only did Michael Cohen steal money from Trump, he stole money in the transaction that is at the heart of the New York case, the transaction where Trump supposedly paid off Stormy Daniels. So how did this all go down? Trump allegedly authorizes certain payments for campaign expenses. Okay, we're going to pay off this guy. We're going to take out some ads here. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to try, move money around to keep the campaign looking good. This includes $50,000 for a company called Red Finch. Red Finch is just one of these political operative companies. There are a lot of them. Michael Cohen, only pays Red Finch $20,000 in a brown paper bag. Michael Cohen then pockets $30,000. Then when you factor in the reimbursement that he got from Donald Trump, he stole $60,000 from Trump in this complicated kind of series of payoffs that cast very, very serious doubt over whether or not Trump really knew anything about these kind of payments and where the payments actually ended up, because a lot of it appears to have ended up in Michael Cohen's pocket. If you're having a little trouble following this, you're not alone. Join the club. The upshot of it is the star witness for the liberals is exposed as a liar, as extremely corrupt, and the prosecution didn't get ahead of it. The defense brings this up on what day is this of this trial? How many days? Are we like 7 or 8 days into this trial at this point? Not to put too fine a point on it, but it's not just conservatives pointing out how dreadful this is for the prosecution. Even Jake Tapper on CNN, liberal Jake Tapper on liberal CNN, says that the day of testimony was devastating for the prosecution.
They had discussed what this repayment schedule would look like for him.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating stuff, and I have to say I'm still kind of reeling from the revelation that Michael Cohen stole money from the Trump organization, and that wasn't, at least to my knowledge, that the prosecution didn't get that out earlier, because it's not as though the prosecution is going to be helped by further evidence that Michael Cohen is a shady character. I'll get to the newest stuff in a second, but what's your reaction to that news? Because that was just kind of stunning.
So now the two people who are nearest to star witnesses in the New York Trump case are an unrepentant hooker and this rat fixer in New York who stole money from his boss in the very transaction that is at issue in the trial. Absolutely devastating. The crime that Michael Cohen has admitted to committing is a more serious crime than the crime they're accusing Trump of committing. Michael Cohen stole a ton of money by his own admission. That is a much more serious crime than falsifying business records or filing the wrong paperwork with the Federal Election Commission. And Michael Cohen's not being prosecuted. So then you get, for this crime at least, you get a further evidence that this is a political persecution of Donald Trump because the libs hate his guts. And the left will exalt unrepentant hookers and rat thieves as their great heroes just to get this guy. It's amazing that the left could take a billionaire playboy, casino mogul, real estate mogul, reality TV star and make him look like the most wholesome person at this trial because of the absolute ne'er-do-well miscreants that they elevate to try to get him. Yet again, Wile E. Coyote trying to get that Roadrunner Trump doesn't look like the Acme Anvil is going to hit him. Now, we can all rest a little easy because of that. When you really want to rest easy, you got to check out Cozy Earth. Go to cozyearth.com/Knowles. Elevate your summer getaways with Cozy Earth's luxurious bedding and loungewear, ensuring the comfort of your home wherever you roam. I adore Cozy Earth. I am not only in love with my current Cozy Earth sheets, but sweet little Elisa has made it a top priority to get more Cozy Earth for every room in our house. And it's absolutely fabulous. And luckily with promo code Knowles, you can get a good deal on it. Cozy Earth's bedding comes in adorable totes, making it the perfect companion for your adventures near and far. You can experience the unmatched softness and buttery smoothness of Cozy Earth's bedding wherever you roam. No matter how hot you feel, how uncomfortable you get on long flights and road trips, you can ameliorate that condition with Cozy Earth. You will stay cool and comfy with their temperature-regulating bamboo joggers and pullover crews. Right now, you can rest easy on your summer vacation by going to cozyearth.com/Knowles, Knowles. Use promo code Knowles for an exclusive 35% off at checkout. That's my way of saying thank you for listening. cozyearth.com/Knowles, promo code Knowles for 35% off. Make sure to tell them the Michael Knowles Show sent you. Thank you, and happy sleeping. Speaking of good guys and bad guys, one of the biggest stories yesterday, headlines everywhere, Pope Francis sat down with 60 Minutes and supposedly said that we need to take in all the immigrants and conservatism is suicidal and people are fundamentally good, apparently contradicting scripture. And this was all the headlines, and you saw it not just from the libs, you also saw it from conservatives, you also saw it from Christians. And so I thought, okay, I know that sometimes the Papa Francesco's comments to the newspapers are a little bit confusing, but I said, I don't really buy it. I got to watch this interview myself. I watched the whole interview, and the headlines simply are misleading. Just on those 3 points. Immigration, we need to take on all the immigrants. Conservatism is suicidal. People are fundamentally good. What does Pope Francis actually say on immigration?
My grandparents were Catholic, immigrated from Northern Ireland in the 1930s to the United States, seeking a better life. And I know your family too fled fascism. And you have talked about, with migrants, many of them children, that you encourage governments to build bridges, not walls.
Migration is something that makes a country grow. They say that you Irish migrated and brought the whiskey, and that the Italians migrated and brought the mafia. It's a joke. Don't take it badly. But migrants sometimes suffer a lot. They suffer a lot.
Based? Not to sound too zoomer about it, but the headline, Pope Francis says you need to take in all of the migrants. And what does he say? He goes, yeah, look, these migrants, they suffer a lot. And when you Irish came over to America, you brought booze. And when the Italians came over, they brought the mafia. Yeah, I'm just joking. But, you know, those migrants, they bring some problems, don't they? So, I don't know. It seems like everything he said there is totally fine. And then even when he says, look, when migrants show up to the border, they need to be received. But he follows that up by saying, and then you got to send some of them home, maybe. It's not just that you're going to keep them there forever. You have to receive them, hear their requests, and then you're going to send some of them home. So if you just take the Pope's words here, not the headlines and not the leading questions, I don't disagree with a single syllable. Migrants suffer. They often bring a lot of pretty serious problems, and we're going to hear them out and then send a bunch of them home. Yeah, okay, I agree. This is like when you read the headlines about Pope Francis on the social issues. On people will say he's a little soft on the Rainbow Coalition, the LGBT LMNOP. That came up during the interview. Here is what Pope Francis had to say about LGBT unions.
Last year, you decided to allow Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples. That's a big change. Why?
No, what I allowed was not to bless the union. That cannot be done because that is not the sacrament. I cannot. The Lord made it that way. But to bless each person, yes. The blessing is for everyone. For everyone. To bless a homosexual-type union, however, goes against the given right, against the law of the church.
Based again. So you, Pope Francis, you said that gay marriage is super fun and great and cool, huh? And the Holy Father responds, he says, no, I didn't. It's disordered and God can't bless sin, and it is not possible for me to bless a same-sex union. I bless individuals, but that's always been the case. And so, yeah, we bless individuals, of course, but whatever LGBT agenda you're trying to cram down our throats, ain't what we're doing. Then he says basically the same thing about surrogacy. He says surrogacy is evil. You can't do it. Can't buy people. Now, the most troublesome thing that Papa Francesco said during this interview was he criticized conservatism as suicidal.
You used an adjective, conservative. That is, conservative is one who clings to something and does not want to see beyond that. It is a suicidal attitude. Because one thing is to take tradition into account, to consider situations from the past, but quite another is to be closed up inside a dogmatic box.
Okay. I humbly would suggest that perhaps what in the Holy Father's discussion of political philosophy here, he is reminding us that the Pope is fallible except when he's infallible. Okay, and that the Pope, this is misunderstood by many people, including Christians. Papal infallibility does not mean that anything the Pope says has to be 100% true. If he comes out and says this rice pilaf is really spicy, but you find out it's not spicy, that doesn't contradict papal infallibility. When he's speaking on matters of faith and morals ex cathedra, then he is infallible. When he's giving his view of political conservatism, which perhaps is missing a few parts, okay, that's just an opinion. No one's suggesting that Pope Francis is the most right-wing or, conservative pontiff that we've ever had. But so what? Even Catholics, I'm quite a mackerel-snapping papist, doesn't mean that every single syllable on any topic under the sun that the Pope utters has to be 100% gospel truth. That is not and has never been what papal infallibility means. Now, one thing that I want to say many syllables about is Zero Debt USA. Go to zapmydebt.com. Does your debt keep you tossing and turning at night? It's like you can't get away from it. The unfortunate reality is that our banking system is designed to trap you in debt. These insanely high-interest credit cards and loans make it nearly impossible to pay off your debt. Thankfully, there's a new way out of the debt trap with Zero Debt USA. Zero Debt USA, formerly known as Pivotal Debt Solutions, is not like the old school debt relief companies that string your debt out for years. They have new aggressive strategies to end your debt faster and easier than you thought possible. Zero Debt USA can cut or even eliminate interest. They will help find programs to write off your balances so you owe less. They can stop those threatening phone calls. The bottom line is that Zero Debt USA will find every solution possible to end your debt permanently. Before you do anything, contact Zero Debt USA at zapmydebt.com. Talk to them for free and find out how fast they can get you out of debt. That is zapmydebt.com. The biggest controversy that came out of Pope Francis's 60 Minutes interview is Pope Francis said that man, the heart, is fundamentally good.
That so-and-so is a sinner. Me too, I am a sinner. Everyone. The gospel is for everyone. If the church places a customs officer at the door, that is no longer the Church of Christ. Everyone.
When you look at the world, what gives you hope?
Everything. You see tragedies, but you also see so many beautiful things. You see heroic mothers, heroic men, men who have hopes and dreams, women who look to the future. That gives me a lot of hope. People want to live, people forge ahead, and people are fundamentally good. We are all fundamentally good. Yes, there are some rogues and sinners, but the heart itself is good.
Okay, this was the most controversial part because a lot of people pointed out that in Genesis we read that the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. And a lot of people were saying that what Pope Francis says here contradicts original sin, that actually man is totally evil, totally depraved, he's not fundamentally good. How could you say that? Just read Genesis. It says the imagination of his heart's evil from his youth. Okay, hold up. I understand how it's a little bit confusing. And there's a big focus on those verses. However, we also read that some people are righteous in the Bible. Noah is righteous in the Bible. In the Epistle to the Romans, we read, "He who does right is righteous as he is righteous." We read in the Psalms of a distinction between the just and the unjust, the righteous and the wicked. We read in lots of other places in the Bible verses that would seem to contradict the notion that man is totally depraved and totally evil. So what is Pope Francis saying? When he says people are fundamentally good, what he's saying, I don't think I'm being too rosy here, I think this is just kind of basic Catholic and traditionally Christian teaching, is that God doesn't create evil. So God created man as good. His creation was good. He looked on his creation and saw his creation was good. And man abused his free will and did evil and disobeyed God. And so we have a fallen world where sin and death pervade the world. But that does not mean that man's fundamental, first, primary goodness is totally blotted out. That is a view that is held by Calvinists. That is a view that emerged in the 16th century with the Protestant revolutionary John Calvin. I have the line here in the Institutes of the Christian Religion. Calvin writes, "The will is so utterly vitiated and corrupted in every part as to produce nothing but evil." So Calvinists would believe that. But is it surprising that Pope Francis is not a Calvinist? I don't think so. I don't think it is. So even there, I don't. Everyone's accusing him of contradicting Catholic teaching, Christian teaching. I just don't really see it. It's a little bit confusing, and the confusion is amplified by unfortunate liberal journalists. But that's why you got to dig below those headlines sometimes and see what is actually being said. There, it's really hard to disagree with anything. Now, speaking of religious confusion, Courtney Cox from Friends has just come out and made a strange claim. She says that her late friend, Matthew Perry, who died some months ago, still visits her. They're still together somehow. Here's Courtney Cox's view of it.
I'm so thankful I got to work so closely with him for so many years. He visits me a lot, if we believe in that.
I know you're a spiritual person, which makes that statement very interesting. So you still feel his presence?
Oh yeah, I talk to my mom, my dad, Matthew. I feel like there are a lot of people that that guide us. I do sense. Yeah, I sense Matthew's around for sure.
What does that mean? What does that mean? I feel bad for Courtney Cox. I know Courtney Cox, misses her friend and her parents and everything. And we like to feel, they're around us, man. They're around us. I still talk to but how? What does that mean? This reminds me of a clip of Sir Paul McCartney. I love Sir Paul, huge McCartney fan. But he's sitting in a car with the late night host, James Corden. And Sir Paul made a similar kind of claim.
If my granddad was here right now, he'd get an absolute kick out of this.
He is.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I would never have any disrespect for Sir Paul. What does that mean? What does that mean that when we die, we just float around the earth as disembodied spirits, that that ghosts are all around us? And we're just here? That's what happens when we die. We just float around as invisible ghosts. Do we go to heaven? Do we go to hell? Do we go to purgatory for a little period? What do we do? Do we just haunt houses? Do we go into the trees in the air? What does that mean? Oh yeah, I talk to Matthew all the time. This is the religion of people who don't take religion seriously. And you hear all these modern people, I'm not saying Courtney Cox or Paul McCartney do this, but all these modern people, they make fun of religion. Oh, you with your religions and your rules and your dogmas and your doctrines. Well, what's the alternative? The alternative is this woo-woo, feel-good nonsense that reduces religion to just whatever kind of sounds good at the time, even though it doesn't stand up to even the slightest scrutiny or logic. We have a natural longing for God. We have a natural longing for religion. We have a natural intuition that death is wrong, that we're not supposed to die. My friend Patrick Madrid made this point on his radio show the other day. He said, we think it's wrong to die. We just have this natural knowledge that it's wrong to die because we were not made to die. We were made to live forever. And because we abused our free will, sin and death pervade the world. And we recognize that there is a chasm between the way things are and the way things ought to be. And we just know this intuitively. We know this when we consider justice. We know this when we consider time and eternity. We know it. But that means that we need to take these questions seriously. This Courtney Cox stuff, it seems really profound. You know, this is the guy, the interviewer sitting there. I know you're really spiritual. So what does, wow, you think Matthew's here? Wow, you're so spiritual. What spiritual, but not religious, I have observed before, is the definition of the demonic. Okay, because demons are spirits and religion is a habit of virtue that inclines the will to give to God what he deserves, which demons don't do. So spiritual but not religious doesn't mean you're open-minded. It means you're so open-minded that your brain falls out. Because theology is faith-seeking understanding. We try to apply logic and rigor and make some sense of that. Otherwise, we're just kind of babbling and wish-casting, saying, oh yes, my dead relatives I talk to them all the time. How's that work? Just explain to me how that works. I'm going to explain to you how the mailbag works. You go to dailywire.com. You go to the watch section of Daily Wire. You then click on the Michael Knowles show. It should be bookmarked anyway. You then click on submit a mailbag question and an email is going to pop up. Then what do? You can record your voice mailbag your voicemail rather, for the voicemail bag on your phone, on your computer, however you want. Keep it to 60 seconds or less so I can put it on the show. And then you just attach it to the email, send it in, and I will give you my greatest, most insightful pearls of wisdom. Speaking of heresy and its consequences, there's a new study out. You're going to be shocked to hear this. People who had... Now, get ready for something real special tomorrow night. Join me and Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Andrew Klavan, and Jeremy Boring backstage at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, streaming live and free on Daily Wire Plus. We are taking you behind the scenes and beyond the headlines at the Daily Wire. And we're being told Jeremy has a special announcement that you will hear first during backstage. There is a ton to discuss. This is your chance to hear all about it. Do not miss out. Watch live and free on Daily Wire Plus tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. My favorite comment yesterday comes from the Drummers Workshop Norm's Music. It's amazing how I don't see who writes the comments. I just read the comments, and the Drummers Workshop Norm's Music keeps coming up. It says, I see Boeing is making helicopters for Iran now. Yes, that's true. Everyone says, is it the Jews who killed the Iranian president? Is it the CIA who killed the Iranian president? No. It was that Boeing contract, a mixture of fog and no, I'm joking. I don't know that the helicopter was Boeing, but if it were, that would explain quite a lot. Speaking of confusion and people who are on the brink of death, Joe Biden seems to think that he was President Trump's vice president.
And when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic. And what happened was, Barack said to me, go to Detroit and help fix it. Well, poor Mayor, he spent more time with me than he ever thought he was going to have to. God love you.
When I was vice president, the pandemic was absolutely terrible. But then I think he remembered. He said, wait a second. I wasn't vice president for Trump. Who's Trump again? Oh, yeah, he's the guy I'm running against. No, it was Barack. Barack was president during the pandemic? No? Huh? Well, anyway, and then he glad hands the guy and moves on. Remember, Joe Biden, in testimony, didn't remember when he was vice president. He couldn't remember. Okay? He is real out of it. It's an amazing contrast to think about Joe Biden and Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter is still alive. Jimmy Carter, there was a headline the other day, Jimmy Carter enjoying peanut butter ice cream in hospice care. Jimmy Carter has been in hospice for 15 months. Hospice is where you go in the weeks before you die. Jimmy Carter has had no medical care other than some pain medication for well over a year. He is 99 years old. He had brain cancer. He was diagnosed with brain cancer almost a decade ago. Jimmy Carter was president 48 years ago. There have been 7 presidents since then. Headline, Jimmy Carter's enjoying some peanut butter ice cream while he's in hospice. Pretty amazing, no matter what you think of the guy or his presidency. It's just incredible. Jimmy Carter is almost certainly more with it than our current Democrat president. That is absolutely astounding. And if the Democrats had any sense at this point, they'd probably just cut and run on Biden and replace him with Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, every year since he left the White House, he's become more and more beloved. Go for it. Go for it. Well, that guy, you can't keep him down. Who knows? He could go another year or 2 years. Who knows how long he could go? And he's vibrant, enjoying that peanut butter ice cream. Probably makes a lot more sense than Joe Biden. Even the libs are admitting this. Bill Maher made this point the other day. I know a lot of conservatives like sucking up to Bill Maher now. I don't do it. Bill Maher is still a huge lib. But he gives you some insight on what the libs are thinking about the presidential race, because he made the observation that things must be really, really bad in the polls if Joe Biden is agreeing to debate Donald Trump.
Let's talk about these debates. I mean, I don't really want to. But it is what's going on in the country. And first of all, to me, it says Biden knows he's losing. Because else he wouldn't have agreed, right? Only the loser wants to debate. Trump always wants a crowd, so that's different. But this is what's so interesting about it. I've never seen a summer debate, not for the presidential elections. They're always in October, right before the election. This one, I mean, June 27th, that's not even, they haven't had the convention yet.
Well, they're not getting any younger. They why wait?
That's a great point. Right. Yeah, okay.
He raises a great point. First great point. The only reason Biden accepted is because he's losing. And you can't say the same thing about Trump. Trump always loves a show. Joe Biden doesn't always love a show, and Joe Biden's slipping. And Joe Biden did not commit early on to say that he would debate Trump, but he's losing. So he needs to debate Trump. He's got to do something. He can't look weak. But notice they're doing it in the summer. Why are they doing it in the summer? Well, I think the answer to Bill's question here is, if it's a disaster, the libs will then still have months to fix it. If it's not a disaster, they can run the clips 24/7 on all the network news. Look at this. Joe Biden destroyed Donald Trump. But if it's a complete disaster, they can just memory hold the whole thing. That's obviously why. The Biden campaign wrote to the Commission on Presidential Debates and said, we're not going to do your debates because your debates are too close to the election. And because your debates include an audience. And we can't have an audience, and we don't want it to be too close to the election, so we're just going to do ABC News and CNN debates. And so they'll do it. Both of these guys are the presumptive nominees, even though obviously the conventions haven't taken place yet. And then they'll move on from there. If that doesn't give Biden the poll boost that he needs, They'll just figure something else out. Also because the Libs rigged the elections, starting with COVID, so now people begin voting much, much earlier. So they're just setting the stage. But the really nice thing about this, from my perspective as a conservative, is it's evidence that it's not all just fixed. It's evidence that the whole thing isn't just a total setup and totally rigged. The fact that Biden feels he needs to debate means that he and the Democrats are not confident that they can just lock up the election from the basement of the White House, which means that Trump can win. A lot of people on the right are going to tell you all hope is lost, it's over, there's no chance. I don't think so. If all hope were lost, Biden would not be debating. If all hope were lost, they wouldn't be trying to throw Trump in prison. Trump can win. And right now, if you're Biden, you're probably thinking that Trump most likely will win. Now, speaking of the future of the country, what happens if Trump does win? Well, according to The View, the country's over.
This lifetime assignments has got to stop.
Can I just
and
say,
they need to fix the Electoral College also, because that's un-American.
They need a code of ethics.
It is
People need to understand what's going on. You will not have a country if Trump gets in. I'm convinced of it.
You will not have a country. We need to fix the Electoral College because the Electoral College makes it harder for us to rig the elections. And so we need to overthrow the wisdom of our framers and founding fathers for the wisdom of Joy Behar and The View. Because if Donald Trump gets elected, you won't have a country. This doesn't work. The Democrats need to get a new line. Not that I want to give them good political advice, but this line doesn't work because Trump was already the president and we didn't lose the country. This line, if Trump gets elected, you won't have a country anymore. It doesn't work because he already was in the White House. He was the president. And not only did the country not collapse, we were in much better shape than after he left the White House and Joe Biden came in. So it doesn't work. That, I guess, worked in 2016, but they had to change up the strategy. I mean, it worked in as much as it had some cachet. Obviously, it didn't ultimately persuade people. Then in 2020, they just rigged the thing. Now what? They feel they can't rig it again because they don't have COVID as an excuse? But they don't have anything to say? They don't have anything positive to say about Biden, so they go back to the same old playbook that they tried in 2016. Fine by me. When your opponent is destroying himself, don't interrupt. But I do feel that I've heard this song before. I feel that I'm having deja vu all over again. Cori Bush talking about Michael Brown. This same kind of, Donald Trump, the Mango Mussolini, he's going to take away our country. It's like a broken record. I feel like we're just suspended in time with this nonsense from 10 years ago. If they keep playing that same old broken record, as of now, smart money goes to Trump. Okay, speaking of what happens in the next Trump administration, I have a great guest who's about to come on. We'll get to him in just a moment. First, though, we got to shift on over to the member room segmentum. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, Knowles, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.